Hello, seventh graders. Today we are going to be talking about characterization. So we're going to be learning characterization through the Harry Potter movies. And it's okay if you haven't seen them all or at all because we're just using them as examples. So our learning target is that I will be able to determine characters' traits through direct and indirect characterization. Let's see if we can hit that target. First of all, we have to talk about a couple of important characters. So the protagonist is the main character or characters. In this case, it's Harry. And the antagonist is the person or thing in conflict with the main character or characters. And in this case, it would be Voldemort. And what is characterization? Characterization is what the author uses to create, describe, and develop a character for the reader. There are two kinds. There's direct and indirect characterization, and we are going to talk about both. So first of all, we'll talk about direct characterization. When something is directly characterized, it's when the author tells us directly what the character is like. So here's an example. He, Voldemort, was confident the boy, Harry, would not find the diadem. Okay, so the author is telling us that Voldemort was confident. He was feeling confident. Okay, directly tells us. Indirect characterization, therefore, is when the author lets us figure out what the character is like through their speech, thoughts, effect on others, actions, and looks, otherwise known as steal. So when you're looking for indirect characterization, remember steal. So another example of an example of indirect characterization is this. Voldemort's tone was musing, calm, but Harry's scar had begun to throb and pulse. So if we're using steal, Voldemort's tone was musing and calm. So that's Voldemort's speech. His tone, musing and calm. But his effect on Harry made his scar throb and pulse. Okay, so that's the S and the E in steal. So steal is an acronym, and it stands for speech, is what the character says. As we saw, Voldemort's tone was calm, right? T stands for thoughts, what the character is thinking. So often, especially if you're in a third-person omniscient point of view story, which we'll talk about later, you'll get the inner monologue, the inner thoughts of characters. Okay. The E is the effect on others. So how do others react or see the character? So for example, in the indirect characterization we just talked about, Harry's response to Voldemort was pain, right? His scar was hurting. So that tells us that Voldemort may sound calm, but maybe he's being sneaky or angry. The A stands for actions, what the character does. And the L is look, so what they look like to others. So if a character looks disheveled or dirty, we can assume that maybe they're tired or that they've been through a lot. Okay? So steal, speech, thoughts, effect on others, actions, and looks. Okay, so here's where you're going to take a scrap paper and you're going to write down the answer to this question, okay? So applying knowledge number one. You're going to read the excerpt that I'm going to put up in a minute, and you're just going to, on a scrap paper, write D if it's direct characterization, and write I if it's indirect characterization, okay? So here's the excerpt. If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too. Is that direct characterization or is it indirect characterization? Is the author telling us about Hermione Granger, or is the author showing us about Hermione Granger? Think about Steele. Speech, thoughts, effect on others, actions, looks. Okay. It is indirect characterization. So if you wrote an I on your scrap paper, you are correct. Hermione, these are her words. If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too. So that means that she is brave and loyal, but you don't see brave or loyal anywhere in that statement, right? We are shown this by her words and her actions standing in front of Harry. Or you could imagine her standing in front of Harry saying, you know, if you want to get to him, you'll have to go through me, type of thing. All right, let's try another one. Number 2, same thing, write a D if it's direct characterization and I if it's indirect characterization. To Mr. Harry Potter, for pure nerve and outstanding courage. Is it direct or indirect characterization? All right, this is direct characterization. Okay, so Dumbledore says this, and he's talking about Harry Potter, and he's saying Harry has outstanding courage and pure nerve. So the author is saying this about Harry, right? So it's direct characterization. And let's try a third one. So I'm going to pause while you watch this video, and I want you to watch the clip. It's about 5 minutes, and I want you to choose one character in the clip, write one characteristic of that person, and then write how you know this. Okay? So go ahead and pause here and go to the clip and watch that. Okay, now that you've watched the clip, you could have chosen Hermione, the girl in the beginning. You could have chosen Ron, the redheaded boy. You could have chosen Dudley, the bigger guy who stops to shake Harry's hand. You could have chosen Harry, or you could have even chosen Aunt Petunia, the woman in pink who Harry talks to. Okay, so you should have written down one of those characters, and you should also have written down one of the characteristics that were shown in this clip. Okay, and if you've done that, then you have identified indirect characterization. You've identified a characteristic based on indirect characterization. If you couldn't do that, maybe go back and look at the definitions on the slideshow here and see if you can try again. Or if you think you want more practice, watch the clip again and choose a different character and choose a different characteristic. Okay. So our learning target. I can determine characters' traits through direct and indirect characterization. Do you think we hit that mark? Can you now define Steele? Can you tell the difference between the author telling us about a character and the author showing us something about a character? If no, then go back and rewatch this and see if you can do it again. If yes, then we hit our mark. Okay, that's it.